First, your thoughts on the president's persona, any hits or misses here, anything that surprised you or was missing, especially when it comes to these economic policies?
Let's focus on his priority bills. No one will, on the whole, no one will quarrel with his priorities. The challenge, though, is it's a laundry list, and it must be clear what weight should be given to each of these measures. So on the whole, they are okay. One can quibble over some proposals. For me, what is important is to identify what really are the main barriers to our growth and development. President Marcos said that we need to recover quickly. We need to grow the economy. The economic managers are sponsoring some of these measures, particularly the need for a fiscal consolidation program. The fiscal consolidation program, for example, is indeed reflected in the State of the Nation address of President Marcos. But again, there are other measures there, and in the end, we don't know what Congress will. Even if they are all priority bills, Congress still has to do some kind of sequencing. There are, as you said, there are 19 priority bills. Difficult to deliberate on them simultaneously. And so there is a need to further narrow that list.
Okay, given that, Sir Filomeno, like what you mentioned, it's a laundry list, 19 measures, at least in the priority measures. Which do you think should be prioritized, or which of these measures should be immediately attended to?
I know that the favorite bill of the president is the reorganization of the government. The question we have to ask is it really a major obstacle at the moment? Of course, it is a constraint, it is a problem, but should we consider that a binding constraint? I don't think so. And in that regard, we do think that our problems right now revolve around, first, high prices, second, jobs, and there can be some tension between stabilizing prices and promoting jobs and investments. The pandemic is still here, so we need measures to have a pandemic resiliency. Because of high inflation and because of supply shortage of food, we need to improve agriculture. These are the most important areas that we should give attention to.
Okay, given that, I mean, on the thought on price pressures and as well as supply issues here, PBBM regarding food security, of course, he also will be serving as DA Secretary. There are plans to boost loans, condone debts of farmers, and make inputs more affordable for fisher folks and farmers alike. So are these plans reassuring to address immediate needs when it comes to food supply and security?
I still can't say, based on his address. His bills include condonation of loans for farmers. That's okay, but by itself, it will not address our main problem. It can be very responsive to our needs if associated with or connected to other agriculture reforms. Of course, there are some measures that are long-term. The need to increase productivity and boost competitiveness will take some time. But in the short run, we have to ensure food supply, and that will mean opening up the Philippines to imports. There are still barriers to the entry of essential food. And if we really want to provide the food for the people to prevent hunger and to lower prices, we have to relax these barriers. That's for the short term. Of course, for the long term, we need to increase the agriculture budget. You have to reorient Department of Agriculture in order for the government to give attention not only to one sector but to the whole of the agriculture sector.
Is that going to pose a problem, especially previously, of course, we've heard from the president himself, he wants to veer away as much as possible from being that much dependent on imports and instead really boost domestic production.
I think there's no contradiction there because the reality at present is that there is a gap between the demand and the supply of food. And to boost production, we need reforms to be embedded, to be entrenched. But that take time. In fact, we still have to introduce more reforms for agriculture to become efficient. But for the meantime, we have to supply the food for our people, and that would require the easing of imports. At the same time, the relaxation of the import barriers can enable our producers to become more efficient. We saw that in relation to the rice tariffication law. In fact, we now see an increase in rice production in spite of the rice tariffication law, which some argued would detrimental to farmers. It would be beneficial to farmers, in fact, for the long run. There will be some short-run costs, but even for that short run, we already see the tremendous benefits from the rice certification law, especially for the consumers.
Now, again, you also have PBBM here highlighting the need to overhaul the tax system. Specifically, he wants to pursue value-added tax on digital services. He's expecting that to generate more than 11 billion pesos on the first year alone. Could this impact any gains made by the digital economy over the recent years?
In the first place, it is but fair to tax transactions that so far have not been taxed. So digital taxation has to be done, given that there's a lot of tax avoidance, if not tax evasion in that sector. That said, it might not be enough. You did mention that the amount that can be collected from taxing digital services and products would be around 11.7 billion. Of course, we need that amount, but given the promises of the president, as stated in his SONA, he wants to spend more for education, for health. He wants to increase subsidies for agriculture, subsidies for fuel. Well, these are targeted subsidies. Nevertheless, all this will really put pressure in spending, in government spending. But we do know that in spite of the fiscal space that we have, this can be threatened without an increase in revenues. So the digital tax can help, but the amount, as you said, is 11.7. That is not sufficient. And some other taxes would have to be introduced. He did mention, and again, this is welcome, to complete the Dominguez tax reforms from the previous administration. In particular, packages 3 and 4, namely the real property valuation and the reform on fiscal transactions and passive income. But note that these packages are revenue neutral for the short term. And so we cannot expect any additional or significant revenue in the short term from these reforms, even as these reforms are indeed welcome. My point is, the digital taxation might not be enough. And in this regard, we are proposing, and in fact, the Department of Finance likewise has proposed other tax measures that can be done, which will not impede growth. For example, the taxes on sin products, on alcohol, tobacco, vape products, and the like, are what we call health taxes. They are efficient taxes. And they benefit everyone, including the consumers. So I would suggest that the administration give serious attention to the sin taxes.